Hey guys, today I'm going to shoot a video comparing two benders that I've used. I started with the JD Squared because it was a more common, more well-used. There was a lot more research, a lot more videos, but I ended up going with the Rogue Fab. They're both great benders. I was able to build a cross cart with the JD Squared. This was built with the JD Squared, and I built one with the Rogue Fab. So what I'm going to do is just compare the two. Within my build group, KJ Racing VF1 Kart Builders on Facebook, there's a lot of people using different benders, so I just wanted to clear up some of the differences between the two. Let's get them set up. Alright, so first the JD Squared bender. Before I could even use this bender, I had to figure out a solid mount point to use it. So I had to rent a concrete drill, a concrete bit, and I had to put little threaded pieces into my garage floor. Now, I didn't mind doing this. It was a one-time setup, and it's just part of the game. If you're getting a bender, you need something sturdy to mount it to. But I had to mount it in a place where if I had a long piece of tube, I wasn't going to hit my workbench or the project I'm working on or a car I have in here. So I mounted it right here, which gave me plenty of space. But when I wasn't using it, it was totally in the way. But it's removable, so take it as for what it's worth. You just plop it in, you get your bolts out of your bag, and you bolt it to the floor. Alright, the next step is the actual bender. So you just get it from wherever you store it. Pull your nuts and bolts. And just extend your leverage handle. That's it. Now, once this thing is mounted up, all bolted together, it is crazy sturdy. Like, you could pull a car engine with this thing. Now, I use this as a manual bender. There is a hydraulic upgrade, but I was kind of intimidated by it. I'd already spent a ton for this and 3 dies, and I wasn't really in a position to upgrade to the hydraulics. If this were hydraulic, it would be totally portable. You could run it on a cart, and this setup wouldn't take so long. You could just wheel it out of a corner. But that comes with a cost. You gotta invest in the hydraulic system for it. All right, now let's set up the Rogue Fab bender. It was recently Father's Day. Mama let me get this cart to upgrade my bender. And it was also kind of my motivation to shoot this comparison video because I was so pleased with how much better and more usable it made this bender. That's already a great bender. Now, before I had the cart, it just sat on the floor in a corner out of the way. When I needed it, I would just drag it over, use it, put it back in the corner, or put it on a table. It's heavy, but not overly heavy, which is good. So then I get my air compressor, run the line, hook it up, and it's ready to go. It's that easy and it's that quick. A lot of your favorite YouTubers use this. You can see it in the background of their videos. When you need to just grab a piece like the shift lever. I don't build that from the start. I do that in the driver fit up, which is like 10 episodes into my build or 10 days into my build. To get the JD Squared out of the way, I have to tear the whole thing down, find a place to store it, unbolt it, tape over the holes in the garage floor, and then just to bend one tube to make a shifter, it would be a lot of work and a lot of setup. With the Rogue Fab, it is wheeled into a corner out of the way. When I need to use it, I wheel it out, hook up my compressor, bend my piece, and put it back in the corner. It's so nice. It's so nice, especially if you have a small space like this. Rogue Fab is an air hydraulic bender, I was nervous to use my 20-year-old $99 compressor because the specs didn't really match the minimum recommended for this bender. This is only 90 PSI and the CFMs are pretty low, but I had to try it. I just had to try it. And it turned out it works. It works just fine. It just bends it a little slower, which could be good and bad. It takes you more time to bend too, which obviously adds time to your fabrication process, but it bends slower and helps you nail the bends you want. You know, if it's just ripping right around there, you might overshoot the number you're aiming for your spring back. If it's going slow, you're waiting for it, but you can really tap it in and get exactly where you want to be. And I actually turned out to like that. All right, so let's talk about the nitty gritty. Actually bending tubes. Now for the JD squared, I have a piece of 1 inch here. So I've got a 1 inch, 180 degree die. I'm just gonna load this in this little horseshoe retainer clamp, right? I'm gonna set my bend location right on the edge of my die as prescribed by JD squared. Now, since it only has a 3/4 inch bend location, you think that you can start bending tubes at 3/4. Well, that's not the case. There has to be an X amount of distance in excess to get around this die, and there has to be enough to get it into this clamp right here, which I think worked out to be like 4 or 5 inches. So when you're building or designing, you have to keep that in mind, that you have to have extra lengths of straight tube that you may have to cut off after the bend to make your design come together, especially if you're building a chassis. So once it's in there, you just tighten this up until it's locked in. All right? Then you take your arm and you get a little bit of pressure on it. Then you can start to bring your crank around. This is actually going to be the thing that bends it. Okay? So manual bender, horizontal plane. Then you want to calibrate your number when it's tight. All right? So you put it at 0. You make sure it's nice and tight and it's not going to move. Now from there, you just pull on this and it pulls it around the die. I'm not going to bend any tubing because the price of metal is out of control and I can't afford to waste any just to show you how it bends. There's plenty of videos that show you how to do this. Now I did invest in an upgrade for my JD squared bender. I bought this Swag Off-Road replacement main pin, and how this works is you can see this bolt right here. I had to drill and tap all of my dies and then put a bolt in there that pins it to this pin. This then attaches to here. This is a Harbor Freight digital angle finder. So as you rotate this around, this will show you your exact degrees digitally. All right, super handy. I ended up not using it though. I use 1.5 inch, 1.25 inch, and 1 inch tubing. So whenever I switched to die, I would have a long and tedious calibration process for this. This was a fantastic idea. And if you are just bending the same tube for everything, this would be fantastic. But the first time I had to recalibrate it, I was kind of done with it. And this shaft has to be greased. If you don't grease this, then the pin is not going to move with the die. It's going to be captured between this pinch point right here. And it's just going to stay in place and you're going to get a false reading. So after the third time, when this said 10 degrees and this said 20 degrees, it was a messed up tube and that was very difficult to get corrected. So this ended up going back in the box. Sorry, Swag. I'm sure a lot of people have been able to use this. And like I said, this is a great tool if you're bending the same diameter tubing for everything. It's not very good if you're swapping out dies. So back to that. You pull your arm around. I'm just going to disconnect it so you can kind of get an idea of how it works. This comes around and it bends your tubing. Now this is a nice long lever on it, so you get plenty of leverage on it. If you're bending way out here, it can be hard to see this gauge, but that's that's not really a limiting factor. It's just something I ran into from time to time where I'd have to pull it and lean over to kind of see where the number was. Now, I'm gonna tell you the hardest part about this and the reason I decided to get a different bender. It's a horizontal bender. So you have to level this, and I would just use a magnetic angle finder to level this. So right now it's at maybe a 1/2 degree down, okay? And this has to be level with your die. Everything has to be level on the same plane with no rotation on this. So say this had 2 bends in it, I would mark it here, do my bend, try to keep this whole piece level to go to my second bend and bend that. Now, if it was off a degree or a 1/2 degree of rotation, then the piece was messed up and you'd have to find a workaround to make it fit into whatever you're building. Now, obviously I built a buggy with one of these, so it's super possible. Yeah, I learned to cut my teeth with bending on this. So, great bender. All right, so now let's take this same 1-inch piece of tubing and see how to set it up for the Rogue Fab. They have a different approach to bending, and it is in line with my thinking. All of their dies have a 3.5, 4.5, or 6-inch CLR. Now, they make stickers for this, but I haven't painted this yet, so I just wrote it on there until I get some time to paint it, and it's just labeled out where you put the different pins for the different material and dies you're using. So once it's set up, right now it's set up for 1-inch, 3.5 CLR. Too easy. Now you take this block, all right, and whatever program you're using, whether it's Bendtech or any other kind of CAD, and you set it up for 3.5 CLR, your bend location is 6.25 inches, right? So if your bend starts here, you have to offset this 6.25 inches. This is already set up in Bendtech. So the output just tells you where to mark it. You put this block on that mark, you tighten these, and then it is set. It is absolutely set. No matter what you do with this piece, it is always going to be set at that bend location until you remove this block. Brilliant. Brilliant. So then, you put it in the machine. Pin it in. Take your digital angle finder, plop it right on your tube. You calibrate that after you put pressure on the tube. And the way to pre-pressure this is there's this little hand crank, and you just feel for tension. Feel for tension right here. So this is tight, this tube isn't going anywhere, it's locked in, and it's calibrated. So final calibration is 0.38 off of center this way. So we're going to overbend it by 0.4 degrees. Or you can just zero it, that's your level, bend it from there. And you can nail bends to the nearest 10th degree easily with this. That's what I love about it. The tolerances are way better. If you're building a buggy or a car or something cool that has a tube chassis or tube anything, somewhere along the line, you're going to use multiple bends. Now this was the decision maker for me. I just showed you how these blocks work. Now imagine if you had enough blocks to cover all of your bends. Okay, so my main tube takes 4 bends and they're all on the same plane, which means when it's bent, all 4 bends need to be completely level. It needs to lay on the floor without bouncing around. So what I did is I just bought a whole bunch of these blocks. Set it up on a level surface so they're all in line at the pre-described bend locations, and it was just ready to go. Like, there's no messing it up when you can do that. Now, say you have multi-axis bends or bends that have a rotation. You can set that all up on a table or on the ground and have it exactly right before you make your first bend. And you know it's going to be right because you checked it before you bent it, not after. Say you have two pieces that need to be symmetrical, but in the opposite way. The rear uprights on my buggy are 3 bends each, and there's rotations on obviously 2 of the bends because the first is the staple. So what I would do is I bought 6 of those blocks. I laid out both the pieces side by side, put on my bend location marks, and then I lined up these blocks, and not only did I make them according to the plans, but I also made them symmetrical to each other, and I could visually inspect that all the bends were going to be correct on 2 separate pieces of tubing. So once I had these blocks set up, it was just a matter of bending it and installing it, and it went in on like a dream. It was so awesome. So yeah, once I started using this, I was sold. And it's not because it makes better bends. It's not because of the quality. They're both great benders, and they're both going to make great bends. For me, it made bending easier. It made it more accurate. It was able to take my plans that I made and output them into the actual exact piece that I wanted. Which, if you build stuff like this, or you're getting ready to build stuff like this, that's the whole thing you're trying to do, is you're trying to design something and then build it. This is the tool that will get you there. And it's because you know the exact bend radius before you take it out of the machine. Before you ever take it out of the machine, you know what the bend radius is. So if you're going for 15.6 degrees, as soon as you have no tension on this, you know that whatever this reads is what your bend is. And that's huge. If for some reason you read the wrong line and it wasn't 15.6, you were supposed to bend to 25.6. Well, as long as you don't remove this block, you can take this out and reinstall it, and it's going to be in the same position on that die the entire time you're working with it. It's huge. It's huge. It made fabricating, building, fun and easier. So I already had a bender when I decided to invest in this, and I was really, really glad I did. Now, don't get me wrong, JD Squared makes great benders. But for my application, for what I'm doing, this checked all of the boxes. So thanks, Rogue Fab, and thank you, JD Squared, both of you guys. All right, so let's talk about dies. JD Squared has been in the business for a very, very long time, and it shows. Their dies are beefy, they're thick, the profiles are magnificent on them, and they make incredible bends. You can get one of 2 styles of die. You can get a 90-degree die, or you can get a 180-degree die. I bought all 180-degree dies because I didn't know exactly how much I'd need, and I didn't want to have to buy a second die. The bad thing about that is the 180-degree dies cost twice as much as the 90-degree dies, as to be expected. And just having that choice makes it harder to spend that extra dough. I'm a home garage fabber just like you guys. I want to spend more money on building these than I do the tools to make them. Unfortunately, the more investment you make in your tools, the better return you get in what you're building. The Rogue Fab, they all come as 360-degree benders. Now, obviously you can't bend 360 degrees because you'll never get the die out. The mandrels are set up a little differently. The JD Square uses a follower piece that kind of locks it to the die, and the Rogue Fab is offset so that you can change the positions. Now, I'm a researcher. I love watching videos. I wouldn't know any of this stuff, or wouldn't have heard of Rogue Fab unless I did look at this stuff. I saw some crazy guy compare these two, which was also a minor motivation to kind of set it straight and give you guys an honest review about it. He said that the Rogue Fab dies put major flat spots in the tubing.
That's more than 1/10 of an inch, guys, of flattening on this inside radius. That is not good.
The dude is crazy. He said it was 1/10 out of round. So let me just show you what 1/10 out of round looks like. If he's right, and I'm pretty sure he's not, I'm pretty sure he just doesn't know how to bend tubing, or he had an alternate agenda. All of this tubing, according to him, is out of round and looks terrible. So I'll let you judge for yourself on how nice these bends are. I haven't measured them, but I don't need to. They're all great looking bends. Both of these machines make great looking bends. So I don't know what his deal was. And later in the video, he said that the JD squared one was out of round too, or had flat spots.
So as far as the flattening goes, there is some flattening still.
But he wasn't too upset about that. Kind of weird. So I wanted to just tell you guys, both of these make great bends. It all comes down to your flavor, your practice, how you want a bender to feel or how you want it to look. So the Rogue Fab dies, stock out of the box, you have to put washers or some kind of spacers on either side, because how the machine is set up, it's got the two side pieces, it slides between there to mount it, and you have to have the correct spacing to keep your die centered. An upgrade you can get are these permanent spacers that connect to the dies. Now this is just something they did to lower the cost to get into bending. These guys are awesome for that. Now, you could look at it as, you know, they're just trying to sell you a bender so they can make money on the back end, selling you upgrades and accessories. I didn't see it that way. I saw it as that they were helping you get into bending, getting into fabrication. Sure, they could have sold this as just their stock die, and that's what you have to pay, and it's going to be $30 extra. Or they can throw a couple washers in there, shave some cost off the top to get you into it. Spending $1,500 is a big deal. Dropping another $20 for some spacers at a later time isn't as big of a deal. So I love that about the Rogue Fab, that you can get in the door and then start upgrading it, which is exactly what I did. I started with the bare bone kit. I got the spacers, then I got a couple more of these blocks. A year later, I ended up with this cart. And there's still more upgrades. There's racks that can hold all your dies and your blocks. I'm obviously going to paint it. They have all kinds of add-ons, all kinds of dies. They're just a great company. Both are great companies. All right, so just to sum it up, you're probably looking at this video, JD Squared versus Rogue Fab, because you want someone to tell you what to buy. I don't want to tell you what to buy. I want to give you all the information on both and the experiences I've had with both of them so that you can make your own decision. I can't say anything bad about JD Squared because I built a buggy using the JD Squared. It was fantastic starter bender, but there is a reason that I've used the Rogue Fab since. I actually sold the JD Squared to a good friend of mine so he can cut his teeth on bending, and the resale value was phenomenal because it's a full bender setup. But I got the Rogue Fab and didn't look back. It aligns with how I want to bend tube. It aligns with how I want to set up the piece before it goes to the bender. It aligns with my ideas that you should know exactly what the bend is on that tube before you pull it out of the machine. It aligns with the program I use, the kind of bends that I want to make, and just how to set it up and use it. It's a fantastic bender. The engineering on it is fantastic. The people that designed it, the people that sell it really believe in what they're doing, and they really have intentions of making home fabricators' jobs easier with what they're doing. It's fantastic. They're a new company. They're fairly new, but that doesn't mean they're bad. Just because JD Squared has more history, more videos on it, more reviews, more how-to videos, doesn't make Rogue Fab a bad company. It just makes them a new company. JD Squared is a very practical, analog approach to bending. The dies are solid. You get nice bends out of it, and you can move it out of the way of your garage if you need to. Rogue Fab has taken a lot of information from the bending world and improved upon it. A lot of people that had JD squared benders were turning them into vertical benders so that they could put that digital gauge on it to get better bends. Rogue Fab just made theirs a vertical bender from the start so that you don't have to worry about trying to convert it. Rogue Fab made theirs into a simple kit to get you into the bending game, and then offered a whole bunch of add-ons to make your machine better. That's brilliant. It's very, very good for the home fabricator to get into something at a lower cost and then improve on it. It's huge. And their dies are good too. You get good bends out of their dies. So I'm not going to tell you which one to get, but I'm going to tell you both are good. And there is a reason I ended up with the M600 Rogue Fab bender and the Rogue Fab notcher for that matter. They just make good stuff. Both companies are great. I hope all of your fabrication projects work out really well with whatever bender you use. I started this channel not to become a YouTube star, but because I'm a dude in a garage wanting to help other dudes in garages. I'm a mathematician and analyst by nature, so all this stuff kind of came naturally to me. So every intention I have is not to make money, it's not to get sponsored, it's not to build my stuff and sell it. It's literally just to help the guys out there that want to be able to do this in their garage. And you can totally build this stuff in your garage if you get the right setup. So now it's time for a shameless plug. So if you like the buggies in this video, these are buggies that I designed and made. The black one I made with the JD squared a few years ago, and I put a video up on YouTube and it caught some traction, and every other comment was, hey, do you sell plans for this? Do you sell plans for this? So that kind of gave me the idea to help other builders or create a clean palette so that someone could get the chassis and then explore all their own creativity with it and be a home fabber and have an awesome machine to play with. The second and third one that I built, I used the Rogue Fab bender. I kind of upgraded it, drew out the plans into like an IKEA style build where all the parts are labeled, you bend them, you notch them, and then you just kind of assemble it. Like this would be like C14 and 15 and C23, C24, and it's all a straightforward build process. I designed the chassis that way so that if this is your first one, you can build this and still maintain a pretty tight tolerance and have a strong chassis. There's a full 27 episode build series, so you know it's detailed enough to where you can follow along. The plans are in the description. I set up a Facebook group for the people that are buying the plans and building. They post all their progress. We discuss different options because you don't have to use the same components I did. You can put a lot of different engines in here. You can use a variety of rear ends, steering racks, shocks, tires, wheels, A-arms. Like this is just a basic chassis that you can add whatever component you want to. And that's the reason I designed it. It is built to the specifications of a race series to make it safe. That was really important to me, to make a chassis that was safe. So it is built to race specifications of a series that has suffered 0 fatalities. Huge. So the plans are only $50 because I'm not trying to get rich off of this. I'm just trying to help dudes in garages. So if you want to take a stab at being creative, doing something cool, and having a really cool car to drive around, check it out. It's KJ Racing. The Facebook group is KJ Racing VF1 Kart Builders. This is called a VF1, and you will find out when you watch the videos why it's called that. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys on the drive videos this summer.